Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the very first Bootcamp of 2019, talking about everything you need to know about ACL Robotics. My name is Alice McDowell. I'm from the customer marketing team here at ACL, and I am your moderator for the webinar today. A couple of housekeeping items before we start today's webinar. As always, we will be sending you a recording and the slides of today's webinar in the next couple of days. If anyone is having trouble hearing us from your computer, you can also dial in through the phone. Click on the Join Audio, select phone call and your country to display the phone numbers. Once you've dialed the phone number, enter the meeting and participant ID to join the webinar. We will also have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but please submit your questions throughout. Click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the console to open the window. For today's ACL experts, I would like to introduce you to Kevin Leger, the Director of Product Design at ACL. With 8 years of experience in GRC, Kevin is passionate about delivering technology solutions that help ACL customers combat fraud, waste, and abuse. And joining Kevin today, we have product designer Lauren Bates. Having previously worked on data visualization and dashboard products in the fintech and mobile gaming industries, Lauren is now using her passion for data and product design to help ACL customers become more sought after. So without further ado, I will hand over to Lauren and Kevin.
Thanks, Alice. ACL has been innovating for over 3 decades. From the inception of audit command language to the founding of the company, ACL has grown with a number of advancements in technology over the years. We brought ACL to Windows in 1993, introduced the first continuous monitoring solution in 2002. In 2012, we acquired Workpapers, and in 2014, launched data-driven GRC. If you're following the trend of this timeline, you probably guessed we're about due for our next innovative solution, and you're right. Today we're going to talk about ACL Robotics. Technology advancement has changed how we manage and govern our organization's operations. Not only are we incorporating the latest tech advancements into our gear, tech is fundamentally changing how we communicate, analyze data, and ultimately operate our businesses.
Yeah, what we've seen over the last number of years is that organizations are becoming increasingly more data-driven in their decision-making. Traditional rules-based analytics and manual tools are just not getting the job done anymore, and we're striving to bring the next generation of data automation tools into our customers' hands.
That's right. And some of the tech advancements we see across our customers and analyzing trends, there's 5 major ones we see. And the first one is modern BI.
Yeah, traditionally, BI has just been dashboards with a bunch of graphs and fancy charts. But we really believe at ACL that charts are meaningless without context. And we really believe that the story behind the data and the context behind the data is just as important as the display of the data. We'll show you how we've taken these technology advancements to put the story of the data alongside the data into one view.
So important. And the second one we see is what we call easy button analysis.
Yeah, we often see people really know they need to start using data in order to make better decisions, but they really struggle to get up and running because they think the data needs to be hard. We really want to, at ACL, to make that first step into using data, into making better decisions and doing more with your job. We want to make that first step much easier. And we also want to take the more advanced analysis techniques and make them more accessible so you don't need to be a data scientist in order to use them.
Yeah, all about baby steps. The next thing we see quite a bit is automation and bots, hence robotics.
Yeah, everybody is talking about robotic process automation and bots and automation tools. And we really believe that in the realm of audit risk and compliance, this is becoming critical teams are small and you need to get more and more done, and being able to automate those tasks and almost think of our platform as being an assistant or another person on your team to help you get more done, and automate those repetitive, boring tasks so that you can spend more time on high value work.
Mm-hmm. You probably have a lot of different business applications across your groups. So integrating those is the next kind of advancement we see.
Yeah, and at ACL, we have a philosophy around open data. And what we mean by open data is we want to make it really easy to pull in data from all of the various systems in your organization that you need to integrate into your audit, risk, or compliance workflows. But then similarly, we don't want to trap the really important risk data or the insights that you get working within our platform. So we want to make it easy to also take the data and integrate it back into your other business applications.
Definitely, it's your data. And then the last advancement we see taking off is cloud and ease of use.
Yeah, this is where there's been huge technology advancements over the last 5-10 years, where there's so much technology now in the hands of everybody. And you need to make it easy to use because you're going to be using 5, 10, maybe in a couple of years, maybe you be using 20 different tools. That's a lot of training to take. So we really take advantage of modern UI patterns to make it easy to get up and running.
Mm-hmm. We've designed our ACL platform to take advantage of these advancements and tailor it specifically for audit, risk, and compliance. Now, most organizations are at one of these levels of technological advancements. In order to continue staying relevant, it's important to look ahead at the next stage to continue to provide more business value to your organization. Now, the first stage is fairly manual.
Yeah, everybody has to start somewhere. And I really believe that you want to get started with just doing some manual work, maybe getting that data from somebody, running some simple tests or summarizations or pivot tables to get insight into where there might be risk or problems. Mm-hmm. And then that can point you in a direction on where to spend more time investigating.
Exactly. And then the next step is a more automated approach.
Yeah, and so taking stuff from being manual to automated is going to be a little bit of work. So you really want to, after your investigation into that manual work and depending on your findings, you want to take those ones that are the highest value or have the most risk or are the most repetitive, spend the effort to automate those, and then you get the payoff every week or every month or every quarter, not having to do that anymore, and then you can focus those resources elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And then the next step that we see a lot of organizations moving into is becoming proactive.
Yeah, so often what we see is everyone's always looking backwards. What happened in the past? What were the issues that happened last year or last month? Once you get into that more automated approach, you can start being more proactive, finding issues as they happen in real time and actioning on them as soon as they happen, and being proactive and making sure that they don't cause significant problems down the line.
Exactly. And once you start looking at the future and analyzing it, you can start predicting it.
Yeah, and this is where we really see a lot of our most advanced customers who are extracting extreme amounts of value from our platform. They're not just being proactive, but they're using more advanced analytical capabilities in order to predict not where was the risk today or last month, but where is the risk going to be next year or next quarter.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit more in the demo portion about how you can move through all these levels with our platform, but we've got an area for you to get started. So across industries and applications, we're finding ACL customers face 3 common challenges. And the first one is that you're resource strapped.
Yeah, these are really the challenges that we want to help solve with technology, or we want to help people do more with technology. And the pressure for organizations to perform is bigger than ever. And we know that resources can often be hard to come by. And so teams are challenged Their bosses and executives want them to do more with less. And this is a huge opportunity for technology to help. And like we said before, we want to be a technology platform that adds to your team and is an assistant and helps you scale your team to do much more.
Absolutely. And with your team and all your technology, you probably have quite a lot of data from a lot of different resources. I know that we do.
Yeah, velocity and volume of data is increasing exponentially, and figuring out how it fits together or where to start, what to analyze first, can be a big problem. And again, this is a place where technology can help you take your millions or tens of millions of data records and transactions, summarize that down to a consumable chunk, and then use that information to make decisions on where to point your resources.
Mm-hmm. And the last challenge where we think technology can make a big difference is where most of us are looking for an even higher level of assurance these days.
Yeah, there's more risk than ever, and you can even see it in the Fortune 500. It changes, that list changes more rapidly than it ever has. So organizations want more assurance that they'll be able to meet their business objectives with high probability and assurance. And a combination of people and technology is what can make that happen.
Absolutely. So to solve these challenges and leverage the latest technology advancements, we launched ACL Robotics in December. And the vision of ACL Robotics is to provide a suite of data automation and machine learning tools to help organizations achieve process excellence.
Yeah, really what we want to do, like again, we said, we want to add to your team and be another assistant, and we want to be able to create self-driven audit, risk, and compliance activities in order to help organizations meet their business objectives and become much more successful.
Absolutely. So lots of things robots can do, but no longer do you need to waste time on repetitive tasks. You can build robots to analyze your data. You can use them to perform complex computations or even the simple ones that may take time due to their repetitive nature.
Yeah, and this has really been ACL's sweet spot for the last 35 years. But I also feel this is where people often can overcomplicate things. Getting started with data doesn't have to be complicated. I've seen people get a lot of value from simple summarizations or simple pulling of data and joining it together to produce a very critical report that's required and is highly manual.
Mm-hmm. Once you've got your robots analyzing your data, you can schedule them with tasks so that all of your data analysis is automated, freeing you up for high value and interesting work.
Yeah, who wants to spend all of Monday morning clicking around to get that important report ready for your boss? What if a robot put it together for you on the weekend or on early Monday morning, and then it was there ready for you when you got to work and ready for you to action on, thus making you and your team more productive?
That sounds great. Robots are great at repetitive tasks, mundane things, but humans are better knowing about the business and those tasks that require human intuition. So you can build robots to leave the human part of the process to you and then pick it up when you're done, completing the process automation.
Yeah, robots can really make sure the right tasks go to the right people and perform those repetitive steps. But some tasks require human interaction or professional judgment, and that's where our customers come in. So we also want to give you the tools to define workflows, capture evidence, be able to assign things to the right people, and ultimately ensure that you take all the steps you need to remediate issues in your organization.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see an example of this a little bit later. So knowing that your process is complete, you can start building robots to monitor it. Robots can update metrics, charts, and dashboards in real time to inform your strategic decisions.
Yeah, everything that happens in those tiny tactical data tasks that you do every day can then all be put together and aggregated up to more of a executive or board level view, or even more of a monitoring view. So in one glance, you can quickly see where are we trending, where are we at, what do we need to do next, and can really inform some of those high level decisions that can often be hard to make.
Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about the things that you can build robots to do, but they're smart too, and they can learn. Robots will help you become the citizen data scientist by applying machine learning techniques to your business.
Yeah, we know at ACL that machine learning has become a big buzz in the industry. But what we often find is people are just saying, hey, we need to incorporate machine learning, but they don't actually know where they want to point that at. So what we really want to do at ACL is help bring those use cases to light, help you apply machine learning to the right problems in your organization, but also make it accessible so that the non-data scientists can use these very powerful commands in order to do really interesting things that traditional rules-based analytics wouldn't help you find. For instance, clustering your data and finding patterns that maybe you didn't know were there. In our recent launch of ACL Analytics, we introduced our first unsupervised machine learning commands. Mm-hmm. And even right now, the team is working hard on the next release to introduce some supervised learning commands. So for instance, you can train a model in order to detect fraud based on patterns from past fraud. And then as new transactions come in, predict which ones look fraudulent. And then those are the ones that you want to spend your time investigating, as an example.
This is where you can really get into that predictive style analysis or work, which is really exciting. So you've been using some of these robots with ACL already, but with the new robots module and machine learning commands, we're bringing it all into one solution, ACL Robotics, built for self-driving GRC.
Yeah, we really wanted to take this opportunity to package all these tools into one end-to-end solution. A lot of these tools we have had before, and maybe you have seen before. We've introduced some new ones with machine learning and our robots module. But yeah, we wanted to package it all together so that into one product that we could deliver to all of our customers. And whether you're just getting started in data, or you have a very mature program, this one product solution will be the right fit for you, because you can get started really simply, but as you're ready to take those next steps in your data journey, the solution will scale as you scale in your needs.
Mm-hmm. So ACL Robotics is available in 3 editions. The first is called Professional, designed for those smaller to medium-sized teams.
Yeah, and really the Professional edition are for probably where many of you who are on the call today are at. This is really for those people that need the whole suite of analytical capabilities. But we also provide some light capabilities in robotics and workflow and remediation and reporting, so that you can get started there as well, and it can scale to your needs as you grow in maturity.
Mm-hmm. And if you're ready for a little bit more automation, Team might be a little bit more suitable for you, or even Enterprise for those medium to large teams looking to incorporate more remediation and process automation.
Yeah, and if you want some more information on these different editions and what you get in each one, please follow up with us and we'll get back to you after the webinar.
Mm-hmm. Now, Kevin's going to walk us through a bit of a demo of robotics. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to the chat and we'll catch them at the end of the webinar.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So I'm actually going to start the demo in hopefully the area that everyone here today is already somewhat familiar with. So here I have our ACL Analytics product. And I actually have a project that I've been working on a little bit. It's my IT general controls project for doing some testing around our IT general controls. And I recently got interested in testing whether whether we have some people who have administrative privileges who maybe shouldn't. So I wanted to go and do some matches there. We actually have an external list of people who are approved privileged people who should have administrative access to our systems. And I wanted to join that with our Active Directory data to see if maybe there's some people that have privileges that they shouldn't.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, there could be some real problems here. So you can see here, this is just my result table. I actually found 7 records and cases of people that have administrative privileges that maybe shouldn't. There's still going to need to be some human interaction and investigation there. And we'll see how that happens in a second. But in finding these problems, I decided that it's probably a good idea, because this is a huge risk, it's probably a good idea to automate this test so that it can run every day, and so that we're not going back and finding these problems after they've already happened and potentially some malicious activity occurred. We want to find these problems in real time and remediate them in as close to real time as we can. So after doing this data analysis manually, I created a script to automate it. And basically the script takes data that I was already putting together from my IT general controls robot. And then I just added this test as a new test into my robot in order to automate this and then automate some of the follow-up activity. So I'm not going to go through the details of my script here, but definitely if you want more information, we actually have a IT general control robot that's all pre-packaged and ready to go. And if you want more information on that, you can follow up with us afterwards. But what I do want to show is once my script is done and I've tested it in ACL Analytics and I feel like it's ready to put into more of a robotic automation form, I can actually commit my scripts up into our robots module. And I'm not going to do that today because I actually did that yesterday to prep for this demo, but just wanted to show the integration there. So now I'm going to switch contexts. I'm going to switch over to our ACL GRC platform. And I'm here sitting in our new robots module. And the robots module is where you take your data analytics tests or data importing or data aggregation and reporting, and you turn that into robotic automation so that either at a push of a button or in a scheduled fashion, you can have those tasks run for you so that you don't have to do it manually. And we can see here, I have actually 3 robots I've created. And at ACL, we like to have some fun with our robots, and we've been giving them human names because we like to think of them as assistants and part of our team, and they're helping us do our job. And so the one I'm going to focus on for the demo today is my friend Rob, and he's the one who's helping us test for unauthorized access. So I'm going to click into Rob.
Rob's so helpful.
Rob is very helpful. And so like I said before, Rob was already running and helping me test my IT general controls for unauthorized access. However, I had found that new test that looked like it was going to be valuable around non-admin privileges. So I'm actually going to click into development mode. And development mode is when we want to add new tests or new automations. This is where we're going to publish our new scripts and test them out and make sure that we're getting the results that we want in our robotic environment before we publish them and they're actually ready for prime time.
You can separate the data here so you know that everything is separate and you're not messing with your production system.
Yeah, the thing that's really nice here is it keeps them totally separate, so I can run as many tests as I want, but that stays away from actually going to the operational teams or the remediation teams, so that I can ensure everything's working correctly, test out, get everything up and running, then promote it to production, and get those results in the hands of the people who need to action on it. And so I'm going to click over to the script version tab. And then where script version tab is where it keeps a history of all of the different versions and all of the changes I've made to my robot and the scripts in the robot. And we can see here yesterday, that's when I committed the changes for the new test for non-admin privileges. And we can see, so that's version 5, and we can see here version 4 is the one that's currently activated in production. So version 4 is the one that doesn't have that new test and is running some unauthorized access tests currently in production going out to my operational teams. But what I really want to do is I want to get this new test in their hands because we found some problems there and we want them to follow up on it. So in development mode, I'm not going to show this to you today, but yesterday when I published the new script, I actually ran some tests in development mode. I reran my data imports and I reran the tests to make sure that they were working here in robots. And we actually call those robot tasks. And so if you think of the ACL script as being the instructions for what to do with the data and how to find the problems, think of that as our robot command language. It programs the logic of our robot. The task programs how you want the robot to run. So do you want it to run manually? Do you want it to run on a schedule? Do you need to input some parameters to tell the robot to run that test a little bit differently? These are all the things that we can input in the task for the robot. And I'll show you a little bit more how that works in a second. And then task runs are each time the robot runs its task, it actually logs it under our task history, where I can see the total results package, and I can see the data associated with it. So I can see here that my test run ran successfully, and I got the output that I wanted. And I already double-checked the output, and it looks really good. So I think we're ready to activate this robot and put it in production so we can put the results into our users' hands.
Awesome.
So in order to do that, I'm just going to click back over to our script version tab. I'm going to click on the latest version of the robot, which has been successfully tested, version 5. I'm going to activate this version. And I can even add in a comment to let people know the new test for non-admin privilege is ready for production. And I'm going to activate version 5. And you can see once I do that, it logs a new entry in my history saying that I have now activated version 5 of our robot. And now we're ready to go work with it in production. So now I've clicked off development mode and I'm back in our kind of production environment. Everything that happens here should be real results that people are ready to work with. And I can see that 13 hours ago, I actually reran my data imports. But now I'm ready to add that new test to my task. So I had a task that was running previously with all the tests I had before. And I'm just going to update my task in order to add the new test. So we can see I have some tests here around changes to critical security group membership, HR user information match, and here's my new test that hasn't been activated yet in production around non-administrative users. So I'm going to turn that on. So now that test is now part of my task in production and add that in there. Currently, my task isn't on a schedule. Like I said before, I don't want to have to come and do this manually. So I'm going to tell this to run on a weekly basis every Monday, starting at, I get to work around 8. So let's say have it start at 7 a.m. and we'll have it start running next Monday. And then I can even notify people in case the task fails and we need some manual intervention there. And then this last screen is just a summarization so I can make sure that I've configured everything correctly and update the task.
The cool thing with tasks is you could have different tasks for maybe different regions or different groups and have different tests active or inactive depending on what you want to run and on different schedules as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great example. Imagine we want to run these same tests in different offices that are spread across different regions. We could import that data separately and run the tasks to run on each region, and then just send the exceptions to each of those regional offices in order to remediate on.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can see that my unauthorized access tests are now on a schedule, and they're going to run every Monday. The next run is going to be on January 28th. So that really shows you how you can go all the way from your robot command language and your scripts. You can turn these scripts into robots, complete with version control. So even if you didn't want to automate the running of them and you just wanted to use robots as a centralized script repository for your team to manage and collaborate on scripts, you could do that. Mm-hmm. But obviously where you get the huge value add to your team is once you can automate these tasks to run for you, so that you don't have to do any manual intervention there. Mm-hmm. So now that we've set our robot up to run, what do we do with, we found those 7 records of people who have administrative privileges who shouldn't have them. Mm-hmm. So the real key is, what do we do with those records now? Mm-hmm. And so we have that, what we just showed you was our robots module to deal with the results of your data and the results of your tests. We have a module that we call results. And think of this as your own private data lake where you can publish results of your various data tables for either remediating and making sure you fix problems. But you could also publish data here for maybe doing some metrics around risk or performance, and do some reporting for your business. But today we're really going to focus on that new test that we added around non-administrative users. And you can see here, I published the results of my tests, and I have the 7 records that need looking into. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to click into this data table. And in here, we will see the same 7 records that I found as part of my analysis yesterday. And then these 7 records need some follow-up action. I need someone to go in and look at, why do these people have administrative access when Active Directory, why is Active Directory saying these people have administrative access when on my list of employees that should, these people aren't on this list. And we have some codes here actually as part of the logic of the test. We identified, is the employee active? T stands for true. So yes, this is still an active employee, but for some reason they have administrative access when they shouldn't. Maybe someone forgot to downgrade them, or maybe they were given that privilege when they weren't supposed to. I also have some employees that are not active. So my first inclination here is maybe an employee was terminated, but their administrative access wasn't revoked. That's obviously a huge problem. So we need someone to look into that. And the ones that are marked X are actually people who have looks like they have administrative access, but they weren't part of my Active Directory as an active or even an inactive employee. Mm-hmm. So we could potentially have some ghost employees here that have been set up by someone in order to hide the fact that they're doing malicious things with their access.
Ooh, that sounds bad.
Yeah, so obviously we have a lot of problems here that we need somebody to follow up on. So in our results module, we provide a suite of tools in order to remediate on these records or follow up on them. Because what you don't want to do, what we see happens most of the time, is people put these records in a spreadsheet, they email them back and forth. You lose the history of what has happened to that record and what hasn't happened. And also, if somebody leaves a company, all of a sudden those spreadsheets are trapped in their email. So centralizing these records in one place, everyone can have visibility on what's happening with them, as well as you can ensure that security around these records is appropriate as well. So when I click here on the first records, I can see all of the data in a horizontal view. as well as I get the option to process the record. When I process the records, these are configurable depending on what your workflow and what your needs are. But here I get the ability to put it through a workflow, identify the status it's in, a priority, and then I can assign it to someone to work on. So this particular record, I'm just going to set to under review. That's just Alice in the background knocking down water bottles. Don't worry about that. I'm going to set the priority to high because obviously someone has administrative access who shouldn't have it. Yeah. I'm going to set it to my IT security group, and I'm going to set it to Shahed to follow up on. So when I save that, that's now assigned it to Shahed. It has notified him he has this to review, and then he is able to then add more context, add his evidence, maybe throw it more down the workflow line and assign it to other people in case he needs them to work on it. Mm-hmm. So very powerful workflow capabilities in order to ensure that these problems are being remediated and that people are looking at them.
Mm-hmm. In addition to just assigning records, you could also set up a survey or questionnaire to send based on this record to a field that contains an email in here or anyone in the system.
Yeah, really good. A lot of powerful capabilities for you to use there. But being myself, I don't want to come in here every day and assign all of those records to Shahed. Nope. I know he's my IT manager and he's going to be looking at those records, but I just want my robots to do that for me. Mm-hmm. So we have a feature called Triggers, which is, think of it as a robotic process automation tool that can help you do a lot of those manual repetitive tasks to these records by either assigning them to the right person, giving them the right priority, or potentially even just notifying people when certain occurrences happen. Mm-hmm. So here I've created a simple trigger that does some follow-up tasks on my non-admin user detection. So every time a new record comes in, it's going to assign this non-administrative exception that's come up to Shahed, and it's going to notify me. Since I'm Shahed's boss, I want to make sure that Shahed's doing his job and that he's following up on these. And so I want to be notified of them as well.
Mm-hmm. This is a really great example of where you can interact with robots and leave the really important stuff that needs a human eye, but automate to make sure it gets to the right human with robots and then get them to pick up when the human is done.
Yeah, and so we're not only looking to automate data tasks. I think that's like our sweet spot is data automation. We want to automate a lot of those manual, repetitive human tasks as well. Mm-hmm. So now basically every time that comes in, Shahed will have to deal with it, go do some investigation, and then he can throw it down the line. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go back into my table. So we saw things in table view, so I can remediate them, which is cool. But I can also view my data in a more visual format as well, mm-hmm. in case I'm a more visual person. So I just created a very simple bar chart here that shows the count of records by department. So I can see here I have five transactions or exceptions that are in IT and 5 employees that aren't assigned a department. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Might have to do some looking in. But I've also colored my bar chart by those different types of exceptions it's found. So I can see we have 2 transactions of inactive employees that shouldn't have administrative access. I have 1 in IT and 2 not in IT of active employees that have administrative access that shouldn't. And I have 2 potential ghost employees or employees that just aren't showing up in my Active Directory that have administrative access. So you can see here I get a very good visual indication of what's going on with my remediation and my data. And then imagine across all my tests, I create different charts and visualizations or different metrics. And now I want to be able to show a more high-level view to stakeholders to show them like what's going on with our data automation program. And so I'm just going to flip over to, we call this our State of Cybersecurity Compliance report. And this is where we've aggregated a whole bunch of different authorized access, vulnerability reporting, and security reporting all in one storyboard. And we call it a storyboard and not a dashboard for a reason. As you can see, you can very easily add context and story and insights alongside your data. So again, we think dashboards only go part of the way, displaying the data. So I can see that there's 4 non-admin users and I can see the breakdown, but being able to add some context and insight to that visual representation. So now people, when they come in and consume these visualizations, they're able to see what types of insights, and they're able to understand why you're presenting the data the way you are.
Adding that context is so important, especially if you're sharing this with people who haven't built the charts and visualizations like you have, or if you want to share this externally, which you can do to share with people who don't have ACL licenses, you can generate a link, and then that is kind of a safe link to share the storyboard with other people.
Yeah, really powerful sharing capabilities. So if you need to share this out to other stakeholders who don't have a license, it's very easy to do. Or if you want to keep it behind a login, you can add users in the system to have access to it. And then just scrolling down just to show you, we have a range of different ways to display data, either in tables or bubble charts, pie charts. I think Lauren's going to cringe a bit seeing this type of pie chart. Maybe that should have been a bar chart. As well as we can set metrics around global costs of security incidents, and some heat maps and stuff like that. So a powerful suite of tools in order to visualize and report on your data to your stakeholders that shows the value and shows the outcome of all of the great data work you're doing underneath.
It's also really easy to get back to taking action from a storyboard. Every visualization you can quickly click into to see the interpretation or metric that's being displayed.
Yeah, very good point. If I want to see the details of any of this data, I click in and it automatically takes me to that same data table that we were looking at before. So now quickly from here, I can start remediating these because maybe they need to go down the workflow, or I can even just look at the details of the transactions if I'm curious. So I know we didn't have a lot of time, and that was probably a lot of software to take in. We are going to have a series of other webinars to show this in more detail, but definitely as well, if you're interested in learning more about any of this, follow up with us afterwards, and we could set up some more tailored conversations and demos for you. So that concludes the product demo. Thank you everyone for listening. I think we're going to have a few more items and then some Q&A.
Thanks so much, Kevin and Lauren. That was such a great overview. There's so much to take in. Just before we jump to Q&A, and while you're thinking of your questions, we've already got some great ones, so thank you for sending those in. We would love for you to take a little poll on sort of where you're at with robotics at the moment. We're definitely trying to get a lot of feedback on this because it's very important to ACL. So if you wouldn't mind just letting us know how you're feeling. Okay, thank you so much. It looks like a lot of you are super interested and would love to learn how this applies to your organization, which is great to hear. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions. We've got a nice, easy one to start off with. Donald asks, when will the robotics module be enabled in the GRC platform?
That's a really great question. Actually, we launched ACL Robotics back in November. So it is now available to all of our customers in the three different, actually we launched the enterprise and team editions in November. And then the professional edition is going to be launched at the end of January.
Very
And
soon.
yeah, and so definitely if you want more information about what's included specifically in those different editions, let us know and we'll follow up with you.
Fantastic. Okay, our next question is asking, can you provide a detailed explanation between the robot and batches?
So I'm assuming that that question is asking about the difference of ACL scripts, which some of our customers refer to as batches, and robots. So ACL Analytics is still the place where you author your scripts and edit your scripts and even do the initial manual testing to make sure things are working well. And then when you commit those scripts to our robots module, that's when you create a robot. And a robot is a mixture of the code in your scripts, which tells the robot the logic and how you want to test or aggregate your data. And then the combination of that logic plus the task. So telling the robot how you want to run, when you want to run, and any instructions for the run. So the example of regions, one of the instructions in the robot task could say, run on my EMEA region, this particular robot. And then it will go and pull data just from EMEA and then run and send that data to your EMEA team.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Our next question, and I think this sort of runs on from what you were just talking about and is one that I've seen a couple times. How is robot different from ACL AX? Would you be able to do the same task with robots as you can with AX currently? Do they work differently or in the same manner?
That is a great question. So we wanted to make sure that all the work that our customers who own AX and the work that they've done there would be reusable in ACL Robotics and our robots module. So you can very easily, all of the scripts that you have created in AX are importable into our robots module, and our one will work basically right out of the box without any changes. However, we've added quite a bit of functionality to robots, even on the initial release, that isn't currently available in AX. But as we build out more and more robotics functionality and robotic process automation tools, those will be added into our robots module as well. But some examples of some things that are different are the development mode environment. So you can very easily put your robot in development mode. You can do all of your testing there, test all the edge cases, different scenarios, make sure that your robot gives you the right results, no matter what problems or what things might happen. And then as well, we keep a version history of all of your robots. So as you change your scripts, as you add new scripts, we keep a complete version history, and you can very easily roll back to a previous version if there's another problem. So there's some other key enhancements there as well, but those are really the two big new things in our robots module. And like I said, we're going to be integrating more and more robotic process automation into our robotics module over time.
Thanks, Kevin. I know there's a lot of functionality there that people have been waiting for, so it's really good to get those out in the world. We've got a question here that Matt asks, and he's seen somewhere that said that robotics is cloud data processing only. Does that mean I have to upload my databases to the cloud to be run? I'm used to ACL 13 running on my workstation.
Also a very good question. So we actually have the option for both. So you can host we call it a robot agent on an internal server if you want all of the data processing and the heavy lifting to happen on your internal servers, and you can keep complete control over the security of that data. And that scenario, all of the data and the processing is happening on your internal server, and the script repository and the robot tasks are being managed in our cloud platform. Actually, that was probably a really key difference between AX that I skipped over, is that robots is all developed and integrated into our cloud platform. So it also integrates very well with all of our audit management, risk management, and compliance tools, whereas AX was previously an on-premise only capability. However, with robotics, with the professional edition launching at the end of January, we're also going to have the option where if you don't want to host an internal server at all, we will actually have cloud data processing available for you. So you'll be able to not only manage your robots in our cloud platform, but you'll be able to run the data processing robot tasks completely hosted in a cloud environment for you. So completely taking out the need for you to manage any on-premise server. However, both options are available. It really depends on your needs. And so again, I would say follow up with some folks here at ACL to get more detailed information, and we can help you hash that out.
Thanks so much, Kevin. I can see a few other people in there asking primarily concerned about data privacy and security. So it's great to know that those have been thought about. The next question is there any way to get Active Directory information in ACL without contacting IT?
Oh, another great question. So we actually released in a previous version, we released a Active Directory data connector native into our analytics product. So you can connect directly to the Active Directory and pull Active Directory information in without the need of getting a data extract from your IT department. However, I will caveat that with they will need to give you username, password access to be able to pull that information if you don't already have it. So you may need to contact IT once to give you access to that data, but once you have access to that data, you'll never need to bother them again, and you'll be able to automate the pulling in of that data to perform a test like we just showed today for non-admin privileges.
Great, as long as you're not the one coming up with the wrong access. Okay, next question here from Laura. Do the people you are able to alert need ACL licenses, or can you send the exceptions to any email?
Another great question. You actually, again, have the option for both. We have the ability for you to send, we call them questionnaires, the ability to send questionnaires to non-licensed people. So if you need extra information, like let's use the example we just had around non-admin privileges. So imagine you needed extra information about each of those employees from somebody in the business, but they didn't have an ACL license. You could very easily send them a questionnaire asking them a set of questions like, who is this employee? When were they terminated? Why do they have this access? And that person can provide you that evidence or information. It'll log it back as part of that record directly in our tool for you to be able to utilize, and they don't even need a license. If the extra functionality you get from someone who has a license, if you want to make sure people who to log in to be able to see these exceptions. And then B, if you want them to have the ability to set the priority or set the status, then those would be the licensed users because they'd actually be managing the workflow. But for users that you just need to gather information from, they would not need a license. Both, depending on your needs.
Great. We've got an interesting question here that I certainly don't know the answer to. Sherry asks, how do the robots know which alleged admin access people have low or high priority?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I actually didn't show that. I just showed manually setting it to high. But if you had certain criteria, which you wanted to set the criticality of each exception with, so that maybe it got escalated higher up or to different people, you could potentially take a data element that the robot could look at. So I think a good example was that flag we had, where they're an active employee, they're a non-active employee, or they're not an employee at all.
Mhm.
Maybe people who have administrative access who aren't even in our Active Directory, that sounds most critical to me.
Yep.
So the robot could automatically flag those records as critical and have a different workflow and notify more people. And then maybe the ones who are inactive employees but have admin access, maybe those get set to high automatically. And then maybe the active employees get set to medium. So the robot could look at those data elements as they're coming in, set the criticality of each of the records depending on the data element, and then route those to different people or through different escalations depending on that. So another really good example of some robotic process automation you can set up there using our trigger functionality.
Thanks, Kevin. We're definitely coming to our last few questions. There are so many good questions today, so don't worry, we will follow up with anybody who hasn't had theirs answered, but just the last couple. This one actually builds on the security question that we were looking at earlier, Kevin. Michael says, where does the data sit on PC with analytics or in cloud, which you discussed earlier, but he also asks, where do your scripts sit? Are they still remaining with analytics or are they on the cloud?
Yeah, so good question. So in the robots module, that's where your script repository will be. And so when you commit your scripts from ACL Analytics, it actually publishes those to the robots module in our cloud platform. And the robots module then manages your different versions and your different testing of those scripts, as well as the tasks that you program the robot to run on those scripts. So the script repository is managed in our cloud platform, which then takes care of all the version control, who has access to edit those scripts, who has access to just run a task, etc.
Yeah, really great for collaborating. If Kevin and I were working on 2 different projects and he uploaded the new test like he did today, I could download the robot from the cloud to get his version and test some changes on my local desktop.
Yeah, so really solves some key pain points there for collaboration. So instead of those scripts being trapped on your local PC, what happens if your PC gets lost or stolen or you get terminated? All of that is now being managed centrally so that the whole team can have access and collaborate either on building those scripts out or just having access and being able to draw and use them.
Sounds great. This question I particularly like. Are scheduled tasks able to run overnight when my laptop is not on?
Yes. So your laptop should just be where you're authoring your scripts and maybe doing some manual testing. The scripts will not run on your laptop. They'll either manage on your internal server, or we will run it on our cloud processing server, depending on where you want the data to be kept. But when the robot tasks run, they will never be run on your local PC. So you can have them run overnight or on the weekend or early in the morning before you get to work.
Fantastic, and they won't even charge you overtime, which is really the benefit. Okay, if we make this our very last question. One asks, if I have a project in ACL Analytics with some table formats, when I send that project to robots, the formats are not loaded to robots. What should I do?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
If I have a project in ACL Analytics with table formats, when I send that project to robots, the formats are not loaded to robots.
Yeah, so we designed it in mind with even after you load your scripts into our robots module, you'll still need to test not only that your tests are running, but that your data import and data preparation scripts are working. So you have 2 options there. Either you can load in like files of any format that we import, like Excel or CSV, for the robot to work with, or you just rerun your data import and preparation scripts. And that allows you to then create those table formats, but also to ensure that those are going to be able to run successfully, because the permissions of your server to pull data from various systems might be different than your local laptop. So you need to rerun those import and preparation scripts, ensure they work in development mode before you promote them to production anyway.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Lauren. That was a ton of questions we got through. We still have near on 20 more to go, but like I said, we will follow up with you afterwards. And also, it's great for us to see what sort of questions you're asking. It helps us shape our training and documentation that we can build out for you after the fact. One thing we wanted to let you know is we do have a robotics challenge series coming in February. It's going to be a 3-part series, and it will be teaching you how to build robots from step 1 to the end. You'll learn to build up to 6 practical robots, depending on how many you tune into. And there is a $100 prize up for grabs every week. We will be sending you the invites out next week, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, that's everything we have today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Lauren and Kevin for an amazing overview of robotics. Thank you for taking the time to tune in today, and we will see you next time.